expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB. And now, your host, Philadelphia Councilman David O.
Good afternoon. It's a beautiful afternoon. This is David O. Thanks for joining me on In the Know with David O. here on WWDB 860 AM. I am joined today by some really wonderful people. Brent Porche, you should know the name, right? Mr. Rock and Roll, WMMR 93.3 FM. He is here, looking a little sleepy because, he's on. He's got the rock and roll crowd. I'm in bed way before that.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Yeah,
I got a face for radio right now for sure. Yeah.
Well, he definitely looks the part of Mr. Rock and Roll, but he is joining us, and he will be my first guest. And we are also joined by Todd Herremans. Any of you sports fans and true Philadelphians know who he is. He's the longtime offensive guard for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you may not know that he also has a charity, the Herremans Foundation, and money where money is needed. You don't hear that a lot, but it's a wonderful purpose. Yeah. And he's joining us. We're going to learn about Todd Herremans and what he's up to. And we will also be speaking to Patrick Hughes. Patrick Hughes is a special kind of gentleman. He is a Vietnam veteran, Marine Corps, and he has taken up a cause, One Empty Seat. And he's going to tell us about that. That is the POWMIA Chair of Honor. But first, let me thank Weinerman Pain and Wellness. They do a great job, and I appreciate them sponsoring this show and all our advertisers. What I try to do is do as little talking as possible because we have some really talented, knowledgeable, and experienced people here in our Philadelphia region, and they bring such a great level of positivity and concern to our city. So I'm happy that we're able to do that. If you remember, last week we were talking to Steve Tang, the president and CEO of the University City Science Center, and all that they're doing. Philly Fashion Week, which was brought to Philadelphia and for the last, I think, 12 years, produced by Kevin Parker, Kerry Scott, and also we had Meg Wise on from the from Smith Memorial Playground. She's the executive director, and they have got some really big plans. But for right now, let me just tell you that. I've gotten to know Brent Porche because he has been a judge for 3 years in a row for PHL Live Center Stage in the rock category. And, all the musicians are thrilled whenever we tell them that who the judges are because Brent Porche, he's on the radio. He's a music director. And then we have David Ivory, just a really top-notch, Grammy Award guy, a legend in the field, and, of course, Tommy Joyner from Milk Boy. But joining me right now is Mr. Rock and Roll, Brent Porche.
Hey, thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. Are you trying to take my job ever since we've gotten to know each other? Now
listen.
you have the radio show, the big fancy open and all that.
Oh, my
Are
goodness.
you coming for me?
No way. When you look at the number of listeners you have devoted, I might say, and, what I do is completely different. But I appreciate you being here because this is a bit not in your norm setting, right? You're in a radio station, but you're usually running everything.
Yeah, I've been at MMR over 11 years now, about 11 years in April, and I was actually just hired full-time to the overnight position. So now I'm a full-time vampire. I start at midnight. I go till about 5:30 in the morning, so hence I still got the crusties in my eyes. I took a little nap before coming in today. But it's awesome. I mean, like the rock scene in Philadelphia is second to none. When you look across the country, especially as far as radio stations are concerned.
Yes.
You go to any other city in the country and you name WMMR, the call letters or our station letters, and everybody knows who we are. So there's quite a reputation that MMR has, and we're going to be 48 years old this year, actually 49 this year. So we're going to be celebrating our 50th next year, which is going to be a huge party, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But that parlays into the local music scene here in Philadelphia. We have a great local music scene, not just in Philadelphia, but the tri-state tri-state area, South Jersey, Delaware, and so on. And thanks to you and your staff and PHL Live and the whole organization, we've really been able to showcase that and put it to the forefront.
Well, you give me too much credit, but I thank you for that. And let me say that we would not be able to do this without top-notch persons like yourself, because really, I mean, folks can win $1,000 free studio recording time, which is important, and especially the great studios that we have. But we couldn't even really attract a level of talent, because we're not really in the music business. We're trying to let people know that there's a pathway to an economic future for themselves and an ability to be who they want to be. And that's something you do already, and you've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, the music scene in general in Philadelphia and the tri-state area is so rich. It's not just the rock scene. You got the hip-hop scene. You cover EDM, you cover country, you cover classic, you cover gospel. And that's what I think is really cool about PHL Live, is that you don't just have one focus, unless the one focus is just music in and around the tri-state area. And it's cool because we have our award ceremony, or the presentation ceremony, coming up this Thursday down at City Hall. But it's so neat to get just not some of the higher ups, but just some of the voices across all genres of music in Philadelphia, all in one room, get them talking about the local music scene, what we can do to make it better, and you're at the forefront for us, and we appreciate that.
Well, I thank you for that. What I tell folks is I have no real ability, but I got elected, so I have an opportunity to be helpful. For our listeners, let me say that, I don't know too many people who don't love music, one way or the other. For me in particular, what I look at is what music brings to our city in terms of not just the identity, but in terms of economic opportunities for very talented people and people who are, putting everything on the line. A lot of times, they really suffer a lot for their music, and if they can't make it here in Philadelphia, they've got to go someplace else. And we as a city are the loser for that. And so the opportunities for people to be successful in our city, and just how big the music economy is for our city and any city, and we certainly hope it grows. Now you've been a big part of that, since you got involved in radio, and in particular, you've got a special brand that is rock. And could you tell us, what's going on in the world of rock here in Philly?
In Philly in general, I mean, we're very much thriving. We have so many great venues in and around the city, the TLA, the Electric Factory, the new Fillmore over in Fishtown. Sadly, some of the smaller venues like J.C. Dobbs, legendary Dobbs on South Street, has since closed. I know the North Star Bar, which used to be a primarily music venue, I think they've sort of redone their space over there. And those are the scenes that the local bands usually go to, or the smaller clubs and venues. Right. But again, if the bands or if the music scene isn't thriving, that means that the venues aren't thriving either. And sadly, we've lost some good ones over the years. But as far as rock as a whole, especially like international bands and national bands, we just had 2 nights sold out with the Red Hot Chili Peppers last week. Okay. We got Bon Jovi coming up. We got, all these big shows coming through. And usually in the winter months, that's when a lot of the music scene or the live music scene kind of lays dormant, because the weather's not great, to have to force the people to come out of the house. I noticed a lot of bands this year have actually been going over to Europe and doing a lot of touring at the beginning of the year over in Europe. But as far as 2017 is concerned and rock and roll is concerned here in Philadelphia, we're really doing good for 2017, for sure.
Now, for people to follow along what's happening, WMMR, Brent, Porche, where could they go to find out more about what's happening and about what you're involved with?
Well, I call it our one-stop shop for all things rock, WMMR.com. You can go check it out there. I try to stay as much in tune with social media as possible. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Brent Porche on both Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm WMMR's Brent Porche. And I try to... I mean, you hear the buzz. Of course, Metallica's coming back through. You might have seen a bunch of commercials that they've been airing, leading up to the ticket on sale. I'm the guy that likes to plug the mid-card bands and the lower-tiered bands to kind of give them a little bit of a platform to kind of build from. And anytime we have the big bands that come through the area, I like to highlight the openers. I like to, because a lot of people don't know that. They realize they're going to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they don't know who the opener is. So if you start to shine a little bit of focus and a spotlight on the opener, that way you're kind of expanding not only the band's fan base, but you're expanding somebody else's musical appetite a little bit. And I love doing that.
Well, that's great that you do that. I'm no expert in radio, even though I'm here on the radio. But listen, this is a talk show. But But I understand that times have changed. A lot of radio stations don't have an ability to really promote and support local talent, but you're able to do that.
Yep, WMMR, we're live and local 24/7. So whether it's Christmas Day or New Year's Eve or whenever, there's always a live body in the studio. So if you may be working or you might not have a family or whatever, for whatever reason, you can always call us, text into us. There's always somebody there to answer the phone. And with WMMR, I just think that we have pioneered rock radio. We've stayed the same format again for 49 years, and it's an industry standard. Our motto is everything that rocks. We're not just the heavy stuff. Right. We're not just the Zeppelin and the Pink Floyd. We mix the new stuff, we mix the old stuff, and we mix the stuff we like, even though the bosses don't really like that too much.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, how did you get involved in this whole business?
That's a good question. I do some speaking at high schools and colleges, and this is sort of my story that I relay to them. Is when I was in high school, I actually wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to work at SeaWorld. I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. Because I was a swimmer growing up. I just loved being at the beach. I was always near water, and I thought maybe I'll go in this direction until I realized that advanced calculus and advanced sciences and all that kind of stuff are just not my thing.
Wow, that's a downer, huh? That's a downer for a lot of people.
But thankfully, I found that out my last year of high school before I actually got to college. I went to Springfield High School in Delco, by the way, not too far from here.
Okay.
And I graduated from Millersville University out in Lancaster with a communications degree. But in my senior year of high school, I took a TV class on a whim, and that thing bit me so hard. Like I love everything about media, not just the radio side. Like when I got to college, I did TV. I would record bands and mix them down to CD. Anything that I could do that was communications related, like I just absolutely loved. And so I went to Millersville with a communication degree in mind, and I was a mobile DJ for about 10 years, where I was doing weddings and proms and so on and so forth. So I have a pretty extensive hip hop background and pop background, other than the rock and roll too.
I actually know that about you, which is very interesting because it's very different genres of music, but you've been involved with both.
Sure, and once I got out of college, obviously not the easiest job to get into.
Yes.
And luckily, I had a friend who worked at B101 at the time and was like, "Hey, there's an opening for promotion." So I'm like, "Okay, great." And so I went over for the interview, and I was interviewing to be the B. So I was the mascot.
They were like, "Can you fit in this suit?"
Yeah. Oh, it was over 6 foot tall and scary, big, scary B.
So literally, we're talking about the costume.
Yeah.
You put on the B costume.
Yeah.
Yes.
And usually when I was in the B costume, it was when it was like 100 degrees out and 100% humidity, and we're running around it, down at the festival pier or somewhere outside. Right. And kids always like to fondle the bee, just to come up and see, like, are you real? Like, start grabbing at you and stuff. But it was a lot of fun, and that was my entry into radio. And B101 was actually my first on-air gig.
Yes.
I was doing overnights on the weekends for a little while there, and then I left and I was at Y100 for about a year or so. I did 3 years up at 105.7 The X in Harrisburg while I was still living in the Philadelphia area.
Oh, okay.
So this is my uphill, barefoot in the snow story. But this was back when gas was over $4 a gallon, and I was making $6 an hour to drive 87 miles one way up to Harrisburg to do my 4-hour radio show. So I was clearing maybe $20, at the end of the pay period. But that essentially is one of the factors that got me my job at WMMR, was that when I was interviewing for it, they said one of the main reasons why we hired you was for your dedication to the previous station. And it's like, we know that that's what you want to do. And, I just have some chops to back it up, but it's the passion that drives me for sure.
Right. So clearly, they saw that you were truly committed, and they could really count on you.
Yeah. Oh, when I went in for my interview, it was me and the promotions director at B101, my first ever job interview for radio. And we were sitting in this big conference room, big boardroom. It was just me and her. And I looked her square in the face and I was like, "Look, even if I have to clean the bathrooms here, I will, just to get some extra time, like in these walls and in this building."
Well, you don't hear that often anymore.
But it's the truth. And I looked her square in the face and said that. And she literally, right after the interview, took me down the hallway and into the studio and introduced me to the gentleman that was on the air that night. And I learned how to do the boards and everything pretty much from day one. So the passion has always been there for sure. And that helps to fuel the late hours, the long days, the crazy schedule and stuff like that. That's not a big deal to me because I'm doing what I love.
For the last 11 years, you've been at 93.3 WMMR, top-notch radio station, and You've been the music director?
No, I wish that would be nice. That would mean that I get to program all the music, and
Yes,
I don't think they would want that coming from me. No, it's one of those things where, in major market radio, especially at a station like WMMR, a lot of what we say and play is dictated through the music industry, because that comes with the Grammy Awards and so on and so forth. So we're monitored very heavily as to what we play. Right. And so that's one of those things where we can't really spike in the new stuff as much as we would want to. Like if we hear a song, like, oh, this is great, like the listeners really like it. But I'm more the, oh, wow, old stuff, and you throw in like an old Zeppelin song or an old Pink Floyd song or something along those lines to really get people like, oh, I remember back in '65 when, that song came out. And I love invoking that kind of response from people, the oh, wow factor.
Right. Now you are very successful. And I'm not asking for a response, because I find a lot of successful people are very modest, but you are very successful. But it was a tough road to go, I'm sure. And could I ask you, like, what was your low point, and how did you get through that?
Actually, after I left B101, it wasn't necessarily on my terms. And here I thought, okay, I'm 22. I'm fresh out of college. I got a job in, the top 5 market at the number 1 station, and I'm good. I skipped a whole bunch of rungs on the ladder to get where I'm at now. And if I just kind of hold the line, I'll be good to go. And after a year, it was like all of a sudden I couldn't be the B anymore. And, that was a point where it's like, uh-oh. What do I do? So that's when, I just started sending resumes out. I started making contacts to people. And when I worked at Y100, I was working for free. And this was at the same time that I was working at the X for $6 an hour. So it's like, I'm still living at home. So I stayed with my parents for a couple of years after I got out of college. And it's one of those, businesses and industries similar to that of being a musician. It's like you sort of have to know what you're getting into prior to setting that goal, but at the same time, it's like willing to make the sacrifice. And that wasn't even a question for me. So it was like, put me at my lowest and I will still fight my rear off to get to where I want to be. And, here we are. I mean, almost 15 years later since being in the business, and I finally got my first full-time job. Everybody's like, we've heard you on the radio for so long. It's just like, yeah, well, that was one of the sacrifices, is I had to keep MMR as a part-time job. I had a full-time daytime job. So a lot of weeks I'm working 15, 16-hour days, Monday through Friday, sometimes 6 days a week. And it's one of those where it's like, that's just what you have to do. I don't even think twice about it.
Wow. So that really a lot of dedication involved in that. For people that are listening, and they don't have to be folks that are interested in music, but in terms of like setting a clear target of who you wanted to be, what you wanted to do, what pearls of wisdom could you share with everybody?
Well, my 2 idols in radio were Howard Stern and Pierre Robert. And the fact that I get to work with one of my idols is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And, if you have something that you want to do, set a goal. Like, anything, it can be achieved. Every time you see an actor up on stage as they're accepting their Oscar, it's like, follow your dreams, follow your goals, do all that kind of stuff. And, for some people watching at home, sitting on the couch, are just like, yeah, you're castle in the sky, and you're rich, and you're a star, and you're an actor, and all that kind of stuff. But it's true. If there's something that you want to do, and you know what you have to do to get there, you absolutely can achieve it.
Well, let's go back a bit, because, talking about sticking with it, like in 2016, just last year, we had 5 finalists at PHL Live in the rock category, and they were all fantastic. RFA, Minka, Paper Comet, Stonehaven, and Siravo, like 5 really fantastic bands. And what did you think about them when you were judging? Because
well, I was actually just hanging out with Siravo on Sunday night. They opened up for National Act Pop Evil at the TLA on South Street, which was super cool. And Kid Felix opened up the night before up at the Starland Ballroom in Sayreville, New Jersey.
Right.
So
they were the winners our first year, Kid Felix, and American Dinosaur the year after that.
No, each year, it's up to both me, Tommy, and David. We get hundreds of submissions from bands all over the Delaware Valley, and we have to kind of whittle it down to our top 5, and we have to have a collective top 5, and those are the bands that perform at the show, and then we have to do more judging after that, along with how the performance was, what the crowd reaction was, and all that kind of stuff. And I think number one, you do have some really good judges, not just for the rock category, but across the board. You have great talent, both that have been on the radio, in the industry, musicians and singer songwriters and all that stuff as well. But you have a Grammy-nominated producer and engineer in David Ivory. You have Tommy Joyner, who is the owner and founder of the Milk Boy, which is a great local music venue in the city of Philadelphia, where they have one on South Street now, is the one also on Chestnut Street. Yes. And myself, that might know a thing or two just about music and rock and stuff like that. So I really value the opinions of my co-judges, and I think collectively we really put together the best show possible.
Yeah, I really love the rock show, and it's just got so much energy. It's always surprising how good the musicians are, But when you are looking through all these submissions and then picking the finalists, what are you looking for? How do you bringing what you bring to the music industry? How do you select? Because I couldn't select. I mean, everything sounds kind of good to me. I wouldn't know what to look for.
Well, I mean, it's a little more cut and dry. I mean, a lot of times with a lot of the talent and submissions that we get to view and go through, musicianship, obviously, they're playing their own instruments. There's not a track or anything underneath, or they're playing with something else, vocals, lyrics, all that kind of stuff. If I was to play them on MMR, who would it be, number one, and would it be the caliber and quality that our listeners would expect? And one thing that we do at WMMR, we have Jackson's Local Shots Artist of the Month, where we highlight each month a new local band. We spin a tune from them at least once a week, and then we post up on our Facebook or on our website, WMMR.com, links to their pages, and not just them, but other bands as well. And
that's huge, by the way. Yes,
it's great. It's a great resource to then go back, and if promoters are looking for bands and stuff like that, it's a great breeding ground for the local music scene here in Philadelphia. But it just has to be good. We pick the best of the best, and again, it's collectively. We're not always on the same page, David and Tommy and I, but we explain our reasons and say why we are supporting this band and why we want them in the top 5. And again, we respect one another enough to be like, you know what, you're right, we'll do it.
And let me say this to our listeners. First of all, these are top-notch people, and we do have Grammy Award winners, hit makers, and you just heard it. Look, they spend a lot of time because people submit videos. They got to look at them all, listen to them. Then they compare notes and do all that, and then they come up with the 5 finalists. Then they go and watch them perform live and basically come up with the winner of the 5. And all of this they do on a volunteer basis because they love the music industry and music in Philly, and they love the folks that are committed and dedicating themselves to music, much like Brent Porche.
And much like yourself and your staff and everybody at PHL Live. Seriously, we really appreciate that.
No, thank you. But, I mean, you've had a hard road to go, and you've stuck in there. You sound very positive, like you never had a down day, which is great because those are some tough times. But at the end, you do this because of the love of the music and the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, are there any events that you want to let folks know about before we go to commercial break?
Well, first off, again, our website is WMMR.com. I suggest you check our complete concert calendar, which is updated by Pierre Robert on a daily basis. So many shows between now. I think we have stuff almost clear through 2018. But our big event, we call it our official kickoff of the summer concert season, is Saturday, May 20th over at BB&T in Camden, and it's our 2017 Barbecue. We have 9 bands this year, which is more than we've had in years past. Right now, we actually have a $25 early bird lawn ticket special going on right now, which you can get from our website.
Take advantage, folks.
But if you do the math, 9 bands or $25 divided by 9 bands, it's like $2.77 a band or something like that. I did the math. But Godsmack, we have a Reunited Live with Ed Kowalczyk. We have Bush. We have Pretty Reckless and Rival Sons, and just a lot of top-notch bands. And each year, this is going to be, I guess, our 10th year doing it, 11th year, but we did one year we did 2. Each year we have a local opener. So this year it's going to be Stolen Roads, who I think have participated in PHL Live possibly in the past. And they're our local opener this year. And Kid Felix has done it in the past. We've had all sorts of great success with the great local bands in and around Philadelphia.
Okay.
So again, get your tickets, WMMR.com. All the information's right there for you.
Absolutely. So stay tuned because we're going to talk to a wonderful gentleman. He's big as a house, handsome guy, good-looking guy, and nice as you could be. That is Todd Herremans, offensive guard, Philadelphia Eagles, 10 years, and he is doing some great work out there in the charitable world. So stay tuned.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
My friends, this is Joe Kraus. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, we are back. We were just listening to Brent Porche, and wow, what a positive person, never had a bad day in his life, even though he was, really kind of, out there pushing and pushing and pushing, but, just staying positive, achieving his dream, and he has, pretty much achieved his dream. You can always go up, but, fantastic. And later in the show, so stay tuned, we're going to talk to Patrick Hughes, who is achieving his goal, and that is to remember and ensure that those who have served, who have not come home, are remembered. The POWMIA Chair of Honor, one empty seat. But right now, I am so pleased to have Todd Herremans here with me, offensive guard, Philadelphia Eagles for 10 years. And, he also played with Baltimore. He's a very well-known person, big as a house. I've seen pictures, he's got the beard and everything. And I said, wow, I don't want to mess with that guy. I met him, actually. What a nice guy, just super nice. And actually, I was at an event where we were dealing with, after-school programs, out-of-school time. And I thought he was a social worker. And like many of the folks, he stood up and I said, wow, you should be a football player. And then they said, Todd Herremans, offensive guard, Philadelphia Eagles. And I said, wow, I really should know what's going on. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
What a lot of people don't know about you, and that I'm going to go into a little bit later, is that you actually have a foundation that helps folks.
Yep. My mother and I started a foundation, I think, 5 years ago together. Just from my time of being in Philadelphia, being involved in so many different foundations, charities, stuff like that, I kind of wanted to start doing something on my own where I was able to control where the money was distributed and help out some of the smaller groups that needed it. And so, it was a process starting everything and then going through. They're like, oh, you guys need a mission statement, or else you're not going to really be able to start this. And I'm thinking to myself, like, gosh, here we go, back to school again. I struggled writing papers. I could never think of a thesis statement for my papers, so here we are. Thank God I had my mom to help me this time. So our mission statement, basically what we wanted to do is be a multi-charitable foundation.
Yes.
I wanted to be able to not be tied to one cause because there's so many different people that need help different times throughout the year. So our mission statement is basically just to help where help is needed throughout the community. And
that's a great mission. I know
simple.
that a lot of listeners are very happy to hear that, because any more these days you got to be in a very specific genre or something in order to reach out to a foundation or corporation, but help where help is needed.
Right, and we just want to be very accessible to the public and the community for certain events or fundraisers or anything that we can help with, because there's plenty of people out there that need help.
Yes, and a lot of times those folks on the ground, those smaller organizations that are really putting a lot of sweat equity into it, they're without funds.
Exactly,
and
it's hard to get started when all you're doing is just putting the sweat equity into it, like you said.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into that in a little more detail. So everybody, please stay tuned, because I'm sure you're going to want to know how to apply for funds and all that stuff. But right now, let's get to know Todd a little bit better. You graduated from Saginaw Valley State University.
Yes.
In Michigan.
In Michigan. It's a small Division II school. So I actually grew up on a really small farm town. I think I graduated with a class of 73 people. My football team had 19 players on it. So we didn't even have – a lot of guys had to go both ways on the field. But from there, I didn't get a whole lot of recognition for playing football just because of the size of my school and the competition and stuff. The big schools just didn't think it was, worth their time to bring me in. So Saginaw Valley came along and offered me to play football, and I really wasn't even on my radar. But I was like, if I can get school paid for, I might as well give it a while,
Yeah, now Saginaw, and we're going to give a plug for Saginaw Valley State University, because, one of their distinguished alumni, as I saw, was you. You are one of the, and actually a famous actress who I wonder if you went to school with her, Meera Chopra.
Meera Chopra. I think that she was right after me.
Okay.
I think that I left Saginaw in 2005 when I got drafted by the Eagles. And I think that she might have came in 2004 right at the end, and we may have just missed each other.
Okay. Well, she, for those who don't know, if you're into foreign films and all that, is a big actress, Bollywood and everything. Yeah. But what a small world. There you are, and there she is. But Saginaw University has about a little under 10,000 students.
Yeah.
And it's a Division II school. And so were you really thinking when you went there that, hey, I'll be a professional football player one day?
Not even in my wildest dreams. It's for people that don't know, it's very comparable to, actually it's smaller than Westchester, but the same type of school. I don't think the enrollments were Westchester's is, but the same size, division wise. So, no, when I was there, I was just, meeting a lot of guys on the football team, and we're just kind of creating a brotherhood and some memories for college, not even thinking past that really, I hope I get good enough grades to stay eligible and stuff like that,
Right. And there's 72,000 college football players in this country, something like that.
Right.
And so it's like
every year
1% or less gets actually an opportunity to play in professional football.
Yeah, it's very low. So like I said, I wasn't thinking about it. I was trying to think of, getting a degree or whatever. But I think my second year, I got thrown into a starting role as soon as I got there. In my second year, my coach came up to me and was like, hey, if you want to, you can play in the NFL. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right. This is just your classic, like, motivation tactics. Reach for the stars. If you want it, you can do it. And I was just like, all right, whatever. And then a couple guys that were older than me ended up getting attention from the NFL, and they were coming out to practice and stuff and watching them practice. And then I guess one of the scouts asked my coach if I was going to leave early for the draft, I think after my junior year. And he didn't even ask me. He was just like, no, he's not leaving early. He's not that good. So when he told me that they asked that and he answered for me without running it by me, I just kind of thought, maybe there is some opportunity here. So at that point in time, I actually switched majors.
Right.
I switched from, I used to graphic design. Then I switched to kinesiology because I figured if I'm going to give this a whirl and try to use my body to make a living, I want to know how it works best.
So if things hadn't worked out the way they did, what would you be doing now, do you think?
That's hard to say because my path is it formed my last couple of years of school into what I was studying. If football never came along, I imagine I'd probably be an architect.
Oh, is that right? Okay, that's interesting.
I'd probably be wearing a suit every day to work and drawing on a drafting board or a computer nowadays probably. But, it's interesting where life takes you.
So when and how did you end up, really seriously? When did you realize, hey, I might be headed to the NFL?
Oh, man, I think that was my junior year. I started getting a lot of information from like agents and stuff. And then when I started hearing from agents, I was like, oh, maybe I should take this seriously and look into it a little more. And then that's I didn't really know that I was literally going to be on an NFL or seriously going to be on an NFL team until I got drafted, because the way things work and the chances and percentages of actually making it are so out there that I had no idea what to expect.
Right. So what was that experience like when you were drafted?
It was great. I was going around visiting with a bunch of teams the first 2 weeks leading up to the draft because I didn't get invited to the combine, which is where they, test your skills and get all your measurements and everything. So I kind of came on the screen or on the radar late for a lot of teams, and so then they had to get their due diligence and information on me. So they flew me around and poked and prodded me and had me run and jump and do everything that they wanted to.
Let me ask you this, because
test drive me.
Because you know this and I sure don't. And I don't know if a lot of listeners. What were they looking for, and why were they looking? Could you tell us?
Every team's different. I mean, I think a lot of it is probably your range of motion. Are you more muscly? Are you more fat? Can you move? Like reading somebody's numbers about watching them move and then actually watching them move, you can gain two different things, like athleticism. If somebody runs a really fast 40-yard dash, it doesn't mean they're athletic. It means they're really fast. So I think it depends on the position exactly what they're looking for. I mean, they run you through all these tests, MRIs, X-rays, see if there's any like hidden injuries you've been trying to hide or anything like that. And then they just put you through a gauntlet of drills to make sure you're as advertised.
So it almost sounds like, you didn't really have high expectations when you went into college playing football, Division II.
Right.
And then one thing after another. It must have been like Christmas every other day. It's like, oh my God, I'm getting called by agents and.
Yeah, it was especially coming from such a small town, it was a lot to take in. I guess it was really hard for me to even think, not buy into. I didn't want to buy into it too much because
might be
the downfall would have been tremendous, and I didn't want to be somebody walking around bitter because I didn't make it to the NFL, because I mean, everybody could be bitter that they didn't make it to the NFL, so it just was a blessing. I was at my parents' house when we got called and I was drafted, and I had never even talked to the Philadelphia Eagles before that day.
Wow.
So they weren't even on my radar, but apparently I was on theirs. So
So you end up, getting drafted. You're in the NFL. Here's a question: how did you keep your head on straight? Because you're a young guy, you're in a new city, you're getting money, probably for the first time at the rate that you're getting it, your bright future ahead.
Well, I definitely had my bumps in the road, but I think that it was a matter of just what was important to me and the opportunity that I had at hand. I realized after being with the Eagles just for a couple weeks that, it's all about the right opportunity and being at the right place at the right time, because I've seen so many players that I was telling you earlier are so much more talented than I was and just bigger and stronger and faster, but maybe they didn't have the opportunity to get into the lineup because somebody was there that was already a veteran and they were a known player, and they couldn't chance to replace them, and that person just never gets an opportunity. They bump around from team to team, and eventually they just stop trying, and then they fall out of the NFL. So I'm a big believer that the NFL it's about a lot of hard work, but you definitely need a lot of luck to make it work out.
Now, it may sound cliche, but small town values, family, do they play a role in any of this? Or?
Definitely.
Okay.
My family's been very close with me the whole trip, the whole journey. And my mother's a constant in Philadelphia. She's always coming out here. I mean, she helps me run the foundation. So we're always having board meetings and stuff and doing functions that she likes to travel out here for. But, I just grew up on a small farmhouse, hardworking, do your chores. You don't get paid for chores. They're just something that you have to do. Yeah, up in Michigan. Shovel the driveway in the winter, shovel manure in the summer. It was just a lot of hard work, and I think that's what I credit my success to, because I didn't know what else to do, and whenever I ran into a roadblock, I would just, hard work hard, and something will happen. And then, fortunately, I've been in a good position now after so many years.
Now, when you came up with this idea about the Herremans Foundation, was that with your mother? How did that come out, and how is she so involved?
Well, I came up with it by myself, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to dedicate all of my time to run it because I was currently playing football at the time. So I called my mother, and she was just recently almost forced to retire in Michigan because, I don't know, she was a teacher.
Right.
It was better for her retirement plan to retire than it would be to keep working, which is weird. I don't know. But anyway, so she was recently retired, and I asked her if she had any interest in helping me, and she was like, yeah, I could do that. And so then I was like, okay, well, why don't you just run it then? So
great.
She kind of took over, and we have a great board of directors that they're all very close friends of mine that I trust, and they all volunteer their time and help us to organize some really great events in Philadelphia and link us to some really great organizations and foundations.
Now, some of the organizations that you have helped are Vets Helping Vets, First Responder Seaside Heights, American Cancer Society in Philadelphia, No Place for Hate, McGee Rehabilitation, Habitat for Humanity, Autism Speaks. So certainly a wide variety of organizations and causes.
Yeah. Like I said, we didn't want to just focus on one issue or one organization that needed help. We wanted to be able to spread the wealth. And so usually what we do is we'll pick an organization or two for each little event that we have, and whatever we raise, we'll just give it to them. There's very little overhead in our operations budget, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to just spread money around and try to earn it. And I feel like I've been gifted a platform that I should use to help people.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. Now, for those listening, how can they learn more, and how can they get in touch? Get
involved.
And,
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Todd Herremans. It's just my name, no numbers, no anything, just basic. You can follow the foundation on Twitter and Instagram at Herremans Helps. And we also have a Herremans Foundation Facebook page. We are currently renovating our website, which is herremansfoundation.org. So it's a little dated right now, and it's in the process of rebooting.
Yes.
And being brought up to speed. So actually, coming up, since the NFL draft is going to be in Philadelphia, we're throwing a fundraiser for the Herremans Foundation that will be during the draft, the second night of the draft, rounds 2 and 3. It will be at Tavern on Broad. We're going to call it Drafting with Todd at Tavern on Broad.
All right, that sounds good to me.
I came up with the name myself. So we're doing 6:30 to 10 o'clock p.m. on April 28th, and tickets are going to be, they range from $100 to, we have ticket packages for $2,000 for up to 10, 15 people, something like that. That includes food and drinks, and you get to hang out with me and my friends that I get to convince to come and hang out with me.
Well, I know you got a lot of celebrity friends, so it's a great event. Of course, we're so excited in Philadelphia to be hosting the draft, and for those who want to celebrate this like everybody else in the city, you know, here's a great way to enjoy it with some real celebrities and with Todd Herremans, and also make sure that you're supporting a great cause.
Definitely.
So thank you very much. Well, listen, everyone, stay tuned. Right after this, we'll be talking to Patrick Hughes, Rolling Thunder, One Empty Chair.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
At any given moment, somewhere in America, a baby is taking a first step, a developmental milestone. But for too many parents, a baby's first steps aren't just a milestone. They're a miracle. These are the parents of babies who were born prematurely or with birth defects. It's a crisis affecting more than 500,000 babies in the United States each year. You can help them by joining volunteers like you who walk in March for Babies. The money you raise funds research and local programs that help babies overcome the challenges of premature birth and birth defects. Together, our steps make stronger, healthier babies a reality for thousands of families. Sign up today at marchforbabies.org to take the steps that help make milestones and even miracles possible. Who will you march for?
All right, good afternoon. We are back, and listen, we are. Time flies so quickly, but I want to introduce Patrick Hughes right off the bat. He is a former Marine. Still a Marine. You can never say that in front of Marines. You get it wrong any way you say it. So, he served active duty in Vietnam. He is involved with Rolling Thunder, advocate for veterans, and right now, he has been the primary advocate in our region, maybe across the nation, for the POW-MIA Chair of Honor, and their effort is called One Empty Seat. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David. I want to say welcome home to all Vietnam veterans, and thank you for the veterans that are now serving our country. But what I'm doing with wearing this hat for the one empty seat, the POW MIA National Chair of Honor, is the fact that many people do not realize that there's over 91,000 American servicemen and women unaccounted for. And being a Vietnam veteran, our government knowingly left people behind during the Vietnam War. Not all prisoners of war returned home.
Right. And you're talking about 91,000 since, is it World War?
Okay, 91,000 since World War I. There's over 82,000 since World War II. So if you want to take modern times, World War II.
Right.
But there's over 1,600 alone missing from Vietnam. But talking about the one empty seat, the POW MIA National Chair of Honor, the way it started was in Bristol, Tennessee. There's a NASCAR racetrack. And a friend of mine, Joe Dietremont, he happened to be at the racetrack. He's from Massachusetts. He saw the single seat just left alone, and there was a POW MIA logo there, and an inscription, and the inscription stated, since World War I, more than 91,000 American soldiers are unaccounted for. This unoccupied seat is dedicated to the memory of those brave men and women and their sacrifices, each of them made in serving our country.
Yes.
God bless you. God bless America. Now, in placing these chairs, it's sometimes not that easy because people are patriotic different times of the year. But right now, while we're speaking, there's guys and gals around the world defending our country. And for me, it's hard to realize, but 50 years ago at this time, 50 years ago, I was only a few days in country in South Vietnam. I was only in the Marine Corps 2 years, but 13 and a half months were spent in South Vietnam. So the younger generation, people need to know that if you put your hand up to defend our country and want to give your life when you come home, that our country should take care of you. And our country is not taking care of those families. If you just imagine the link completely filled with people, and then close your eyes, and you open up, and there's no one there. And that's not including their families, friends, and loved ones.
Right.
So something needs to be done about this, and bringing these chairs into different cities, communities. We have one at Citizens Bank Park. There's one now at the Link. There's over 40 that I've been involved with, the Philadelphia area, New Jersey, and Delaware. There's over 400 throughout the United States. And Joe, through this gentleman, Joe D. in Massachusetts, he got Representative Stephen Lynch and Senator Elizabeth Warren to pass legislation where in May in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C., there will be a chair, one empty seat, a POW MIA National Chair of Honor on display there permanently.
Yes, and for our listeners, basically, that one empty seat is a reminder to all of us that among those who have served, among those who have died in service, there are also those who are missing, POWs, prisoner of war, MIA, missing in action, and we should always ensure that our citizens and our government is doing its utmost not to forget those who serve and are potentially left behind.
Correct.
Yes. And so in the remaining minutes that we have here, could you tell us what are your goals right now? What are you trying to get accomplished that our listeners could support your efforts?
Okay. Well, the new head at the Comcast Center is Brigadier General
Carol Eckhart. Yes.
Okay. And I've encountered the Brigadier General Eckhart numerous times. I'm trying to convince her to put one in the Comcast Center. Something else where I'm working on. 2 years ago, the Flyers did have one empty seat for every home game. I'm working with Congressman Brady, and he needs a little push, a little help too, to get one permanently placed in the Wells Fargo Center. There's no reason why there shouldn't be one in the Kimmel Center either. David Christian, who has 7 Purple Hearts from Vietnam, is trying to help me in that. But again, like the other gentleman today, you need persistence. patience, and I say a lot of prayers, and I don't give up on somebody, whether it takes 2 days or sometimes 3 years. We now have 5 of the 6 college basketball teams in the city of Philadelphia with chairs. The only one we don't have is Villanova, and we have a commitment for them, but they're banking a new facility, and maybe that's the holdup, or maybe because they're such a high-ranking team. But the first one we got was at the Leocore Center with Fran Dunphy, who was a Vietnam-era veteran.
Yes.
And Fran is a great guy.
Well, let me ask you this. For people who do want to know more specifically about one empty seat and about this effort, do you have a website for them to go to?
I have a website, but it's more for my photography in general. But I am at MAG12CHULAI for Twitter, and my email is my first name, Patrick, at my entire name, PatrickJHughes.org. So that's Patrick at PatrickJHughes.org, and I will respond to anybody's inquiries.
Okay, and let's go back to that website, because there's a lot of numbers there. Could you go back to the website and give us that once again?
That was a Twitter account. My Twitter account is at MAG12CHULAI, and MAG-12 actually stands for Marine Air Group 12, where I was most of my time while I was serving in Vietnam.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like us to know?
Yes, I'd like to mention this, that Americans veterans are the purchasers of peace, and every veteran has earned the absolute right to come home.
Yes. Well, you are doing a lot to ensure that visibly that one empty seat is something that people see. Yes.
Okay, I have one more thing. The main chairs are made by a Hussey Seating Company, and Hussey Seating Company is in Maine, and the person to contact there is a Cheryl Rothstein, area code 207-676-0282. And on their website, they have a link to the POW-MIA Chair of Honor, and explains everything. And if you have a question, you can either contact me or contact Cheryl.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Keep up the good work. And at this time, I'm going to tell everybody thanks for joining us, and tune in next week, Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
You've been listening to In the Know with David O. on 860 AM WWDB. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio with Philadelphia Councilman David O.